Hey, what's poppin' guys, I'm here to teach you how to model a hat like this in Blender from scratch. In this tutorial, first we're going to learn how to model the base shape of the cap, and after that we'll create the details like sticks. And in the end we'll UV unwrap the cap and create the materials. Let's get started. Okay guys, first of all, I downloaded some reference image that I'm going to use them to model the hat, and its download link is in the description, so you can download it from there. Yeah, let me just hide this window, and I'm gonna start modeling by pressing Shift A and add a UV sphere to my scene. Immediately after I add it to my scene, I just click on this menu to open it, and I enter 24 for the segments, and I enter 12 for the rings. And that's what I'm going to work with. So I hit tab to go to the edit mode, and I hit 1 on my numpad to go to the right view, and I just press Alt Z to go to the X-ray mode. And by the way, you can see what I'm doing right here if you miss any shortcuts I'm pressing. And I just select these vertices, I hit X and I choose vertices to delete them. The next step is to make the shape more like a hat, and as you can see here, it's kind of flat in the sides and it rounds off at the top. So how we can do that in Blender? I just hold Alt and I click here to select the loop, and I enable the proportional editing by clicking here. And now as you can see, if I press G to move it, you can see it moves some areas around it, and I'm just going to press S to scale that and hit Alt Z. And I can also play with the middle mouse button and scroll to arrange an area for it, you know. So just make it smaller, and I just press S and Shift Z, and something like this sounds good. And I just move it up by pressing G and Z, and yeah, I think it's fine. Maybe scale it a little bit. So yeah, after that I'm going to the modifier properties, and I add a modifier that is called subdivision surface to smooth this out. And I just right click and I shade it smooth, and I increase the level of the subdivision surface modifier. And yeah, I'm just playing with it. I think we can fix it later. I'm happy with it so far. So I go to the edit mode by pressing tab, and I go to the front view by pressing 1 on my numpad. I hit Alt Z and I select half of this UV sphere, and I hit X and choose vertices. Then I go to add a mirror modifier by hitting on that, and I just move it to the top of the subdivision surface, and I just enable the clipping. So now it's mirrored and we can work easier. Now I just select this vertex, I go to the front view and I move it up a little bit while the proportional editing is enabled, and something like this is good. I select the back vertex, I move it down a little bit, and that's fine. At the end I go to the left view and I just rotate it a little bit like this, and yeah, that's fine. So I go back to the edit mode, and I can change between the vertex mode, edge mode and face mode from here. You can see I can select faces, or like I can select edges, or I can use shortcuts, that is 1 and 2 and 3 on my keyboard. So I go to the edge mode by pressing 2 on my keyboard, I hit here to select this one, and I hold Ctrl and I select this one, 4 blocks far from the center. And I just press Shift D to duplicate this, and I right click to put it back at where it was, and I just hit P to make a separate selection. I go to the object mode, and you can see I have 2 objects here. One is the brim and one is the hat. I just select the brim, I go to the edit mode, I hit A to select everything, and I hit E and Y to extrude it in the Y axis. I hold Ctrl and I just leave it here. I left click to leave it, and I hit Ctrl R to add 2 loop cuts here, and I just scroll my mouse once to add 2 loop cuts right here. After that I hold Alt and I select this edge loop, and then while the proportional editing is enabled, I go to the front view, I hit G and Z, and I just move it up to make it curve. And it's very personal, it depends on you and how much you want it to be curved, but I think something like this is fine. Now I go back to the edit mode, and while this edge loop is selected, I hit Shift S and I choose the cursor to select it. I go back to the object mode, I right click and I go to the set origin section and I choose origin to 3D cursor. Now I can move and rotate it better in the object mode. So I go to the right view and I hit R to rotate it, and something like this. I hit G and Z to move it down. I think something like this is good. Yes. I go back to the edit mode, I hit 1 to go to the vertex mode, and I just select these vertices and I disable the proportional editing first, and I just select these vertices and I hit G to move them and like attach them to the hat. As you can see, where is this vertices? The brim part is a little challenging, but modeling always good, and you can do very various things by just moving objects, moving vertices and rotating them and like having fun, you know what I'm saying? I just changing my view and make the brim as the way I want. You can hit double G to slide the vertices, as you can see. It's very cool, and just hit G to move it. Yeah, something like this sounds good to me. I right click and I shade it smooth. And what else we can do is like make them a little higher to make the curve shape better, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, adding a loop cut always can help you with these things. Just press Ctrl R to add a loop cut. I think you learned the shortcuts very well so far, and just believe me, shortcuts are super helpful and it make your work super faster. Yeah, I think I'm going to be happy with this shape. Yeah, just like that. And yeah, I think that's pretty good. I can add the loop cut here to make it like sharper, and that sounds good. Let's give it some thickness by adding modifiers. First, I'm going to add a solidify modifier and move it to the top of the subdivision surface modifier. Then as you can see, it's working. I'm going to give it a value like 0.02. It sounds good. But after we added the bevel modifier, so I just hit here and I add the bevel modifier and I move it between the solidify and the subdivision surface modifier, and I just increase the segment and I decrease the amount to a number like 0.05 or maybe 0.01, 0.005. Yeah, it's gonna work like that. I think 0.008 is my final number. Yeah, I like it. So I select the hat and I hold shift and I select the brim, and the brim is now the active object. I can press Ctrl L and just copy the modifiers, and you can see my hat have some thickness as well. I'm just going to fill these gaps, and while I'm in the edit mode and I select these two vertices, I just disable the show overlays option and I hit G and Z and I move them up, and I think that sounds good. I turn it back on, and the shortcut of that is Shift Alt and Z, and the shortcuts always are good. You can use them all the time, just like that. I think it's fine. Yeah. I'm just trying to tidy everything up. You know, these details can make your work very nice looking, and just don't forget them. And I think something like this sounds good. And maybe we can just make the brim like shorter by selecting this edge and hitting double G to slide the vertices. I think the shape of a hat is very satisfying, but there is some more things I want to do. The first thing is selecting the hat and deleting the bevel modifier of that. I go to the edit mode and I just add a loop cut here and I make it close to the final edge. Just like that. Yeah, it's fine. I go back to the object mode and I apply the mirror modifier by hitting on this arrow and choose apply. And then I turn on the proportional editing. I go to the edit mode and first I select this vertex. I hit G and I hit Z twice to move it up in the normal direction of that, and something like this is good. After that I just select this edge. I hit S and Shift Z. I hit Shift Z twice basically, and I just playing with the proportional options to make it the hat like very flatter. I'm just playing to find my satisfying result, and you can do it too. And yeah, I think it's pretty good, and I'm not playing with it anymore, but you can edit it and find the satisfying result for yourself. First, I'm going to create the stitch. So I just select the hat. I go to the edit mode by pressing tab on my numpad, and let me just turn on this add-on. And after that I just count 4 blocks far from the center, 1 2 3 and 4, and I just hold alt and I click this edge loop and I go for another 4 block, 1 2 3 4, and I just hold alt and select that edge loop as well, and I select the mirrored edge loops just like that, and plus this one, the center edge is very important for the stitch. And after that I go back to the object mode. I hit Shift D to duplicate my main hat just in case that I'm going to use it in the future again, and I just hide it from here. I select the main hat, and here first I press Ctrl B to bevel them, and I just scroll my mouse once to add another loop cut between these two, and I just hold shift and I left click to release it just like that. And I go ahead and I hold alt and I select these loop cuts at the center. After I selected them, I just hit here to turn off the show overlays option, and while the edges are selected I hold alt and I hit S, and as you can see I can scale them down. I just hold shift to have a better control on them, and just like that. After that I just use the shortcut for turn on this show overlays option. The shortcut is holding shift alt and pressing Z. I just hit tab to go back to the object mode, and I just hide my main cap, and I just hit here to show up the backup cap, and I go to the edit mode, and while these edges are selected I hit Ctrl B to bevel them again, and I leave it just like that. So I hit 2 to go to the edge mode, and I hold alt and I select these edges in a row that I can duplicate them and use them as my stitches. Just make sure you are selecting them properly, and I select all of these beveled edges plus this one, which I want to add some stitches right here. After I selected them, I just hit Shift D to duplicate them, and I right click to release them at where it was, and I just hit P and I separate the selection. And now I can delete the hat by selecting that and hitting X or just delete, and I just keep these edges and I name them hats stitches. That's fine, and I just delete this solidify modifier. The rest of that will be done in the geometry nodes, but I'm just going to connect these edges. Like I just select this and select this, I hit F to connect it, and I just do it for all the edges, and yeah, just like that is very better now. And maybe connect these all together. I like it. So I go to the geometry node workspace and I right click here, I join these areas, and I right click here, I swap areas, and I just customizing my workspace to work easier and better. And I just hit T to hide this menu, and I just hide these gizmo things as well. And I hit on the new button to add a new geometry node setup, and I just move it right here. And I'm gonna add a curve to mesh node here, but because it's already mesh, we need to turn it to the curve first. So I'm also adding a mesh to curve node and put it here, and it's working now. And I just add a circle curve node to input it right there. I enter a number like 6 for the resolution and a really low number like 0.1 or maybe 0.02 for the radius, and that's all good. We can change it later. So at this step I'm going to do a trick that will make them like stitches. Just do what I'm doing and you'll be good. First I go ahead and I hit Shift A, then I search for a set curve radius, and right here I can find it. I put it between the mesh to curve and curve to mesh nodes, and I'm gonna use an index field as the radius. After that I just add a math node, I put it here, I adjust it to modulo, and I just enter a number like 2 for the value. And after that I can add a resample curve node, and I set it to length. I enter a number like 0.02 maybe. Yeah, that's fine. And then I just duplicate this modulo, I set it to smooth minimum, and maybe I'm just playing with this value to find a sensible number. I think this is fine. Maybe I can just decrease this length value to a number like 0.005. Yeah, just like that. I think 0.008 maybe. Yeah, it's fine. Just play with this value to find your best result. And after all, I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier, and it's making it smooth, so it's very better than before. These are our stitches, but one more thing is just hiding the main hat, and just select stitch, hat stitch, and go ahead. For the group input, I'm going to add a set position node after the group input, and I just import the hat from the outliner to here. I set it to relative, and I catch its position by just adding a geometry proximity node, and I just input this one to this position node. And as you can see, it fills the gaps, as you can see, it makes it way better. So yeah, just like that, these are our stitches, and we are going to do the next step. So I select the hat, I go to the edit mode, I click this vertices, I hit Shift S to move the cursor to selected, and after that I go back to the object mode, I hit Shift A, and I just add a torus. And now I'm just open this menu, I just play with these major radius, and I enter a number like 24 for the major segments, and maybe a number like 0.25 is good, or maybe 0.35. Yeah, this is good. I just shade it smooth, and I add a subdivision surface modifier for it. I just set the level to 1, and I just scale this down, and I scale it down in the z-axis by pressing S and Z, just like that. It's working. And after that I'm going to snap it to the face of the hat. So I just turn on this snap tool, and I go to its setting, I choose face project, and I checkbox this align rotation to target and project individual elements. Now if I hit G and I move it, you can see it snaps to the face, but I just hit G and I just left click to leave it right there. I scale it down, and I hit G again to just snap it. And I think something like this is good, maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, I love it. I duplicating it by pressing Shift D, and I just select the hat, I go to the edit mode, and I select these vertices, I hit Shift S to move the cursor to selected. So now I can select the torus, press Shift S, and this time choose selection to cursor, and then I just go ahead and I align it with the face of a hat by just pressing G. and again duplicating it. Select the hat, choose the cursor to select it, and selection to cursor for the Torus, hitting G, and just like that. Now I just select them all, press Ctrl J to join them, and after that I just add a mirror modifier to mirror them for the left part of the hat. That's it. I love it. The next step is adding something like a circle right here. I just select them, move the cursor to select it, and I just hit Shift A. I go ahead and I choose a circle. I open this menu, I enter 8 for the vertices, and I just scale it down by pressing S. Just like that, I apply the scale by hitting Ctrl A and apply it, and I hit Tab, I scale it more, and I just hit F to fill it, E to extrude it. I make sure that I disable the snap tool, and I hit E to extrude it, just like that, and I hit Ctrl R to add a loop cut. I scale this up, maybe something like this is fine. I just hit Ctrl 2 while I'm in the object mode and while I'm selected the object, and it will add the subdivision surface modifier. It's the shortcut Ctrl 1, 2 or 3 or 4, you know, the number determines the level of your subdivision surface modifier. So just scale it up a little bit, and I right click and I set its origin to geometry, and maybe something like this is good. Maybe we can just, you know, scale it down in the z-axis and just play with it. Somewhere like here is fine. Yeah, I like it. I'm just not playing with it anymore. Yeah, that's it. So now I'm all done with the hat, and I just move to the part that I'm going to create this stitch of the brim. I just select it, I go to geometry nodes again, and before that I hit tab and I just select this edge, not the whole edge. I just go to the top view, I hit C on my keyboard and I hold the middle mouse button, and it will deselect some edges that I'm going to use this part only. I just hit Shift D and I duplicate it, I hit P and make a selection. I go back to the object mode, I name this one Brim's Stitch. After that I just apply the mirror modifier of that, and I delete the solidify and bevel modifier, and I just keep the subdivision surface one. I hit on the new to add a new geometry node setup to it, but I'm going to use the last geometry setup I created. And before I do anything, I just click on this number to make a new geometry setup with the same nodes I added already. So before we edit this node setup, I'm going to the edit menu, preferences, and in the add-on section I search for a node wrangler add-on, and you should enable this option here. And I just close this window, and now if I hold Shift Alt and click on this group input, you can see it will preview it as the output of my group node. So this is a feature of the Node Wrangler add-on, and I just move it right here. I go to add a duplicate elements node, I put it right here and I set it to edge. Now if I increase this amount, it will duplicate it, but it doesn't move because we need to add a set position node after this one to move them. So I just go ahead and I search for a position field. I put it here, I connect it to this position, and I go ahead and I search for a vector math node as well, put it right here, set it to scale, and after that I just connect this duplicate index to the scale. And now I can control this by adding a math node, set it to add, and you can see it works, but I need to duplicate this math node to here, set it to divide, to have a more control on that. I just hit 7 on my numpad to go to the top view, and I decrease this divide value, and also I decrease this add value too, and I just increase this amount to a number like 12. And after that I just playing with these values to find the best fit of stitch for my hat, and I'm going to go ahead with a value like this for add, and something like this maybe is fine. Just play with them to find a good looking stitch row. and I just play with the offset values to determine the location of this stitch. Somewhere like here sounds good to me, and I just play with this value just like that. Yeah, that's very good. I like it. So while I'm in the object mode, I hit S, I hit Z, and I enter 0 on my numpad to make it like flat, and I hit Ctrl A to apply the scale of that. And the rest of that will be the geometry node setup we have already created for the hat stitches. So I just plug this in to the set position, and I change my preview to the set position node by holding Alt Shift and click on that. As you can see, it changed the preview. And here for the object info, I'm going to input the brim instead of the hat, and as you can see, it's working good. So yeah, I just switch back to the subdivision surface, and as you can see, it's kind of a mess and it's not working well, and because the duplicate elements node duplicates every edge by themselves, and it's like it splits the edges. So what we need here is a merge by distance node that we can put it right before we convert it to the curve. And yeah, it's working properly, and just like the hat stitch. And yeah guys, I think we are done with this part of creating the hat tutorial, and stay tuned for the next part where we are going to add the materials to the hat. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate your support and your feedbacks. Ask your questions and tell your suggestions in the comments, which I definitely read and answer them. Okay guys, the first step is unwrapping every object. I'm gonna unwrap the hat first, so I just select the hat and I hit slash on my numpad to hide every object instead of the hat. And I just hit tab to go to the edit mode, then I hit 2 on my keyboard to switch to edge mode. Now I can select the edge, or you can just hit here to change between the face mode, edge mode, and vertex mode. And I just hold Alt and I click here to select this center edge. After that, I go ahead and I select the rest of that by holding Alt and Shift and selecting it. After I select this, I hit U and I go ahead for mark seam. And after that, I hit A to select everything. I hit U and I choose unwrap. Now if I go to the UV editing workspace, you can see it's like that, and if I hit Ctrl Z to undo it, you can see before and after, which is pretty good, and we'll edit it later if we want. So I go back to the layout workspace and I hit slash again to unhide everything, and after that I go ahead and I want to unwrap the brim. That one is easy. I just hit tab to go to the edit mode, hit A, and I hit U to unwrap that. Because we have solidify and mirror modifier, it's not a big deal. It's just like that, and you can see it unwrapped right here. We can play with the scale of that. Yeah, the next object is this circle at the top, and I just hold Alt and select this edge, hit U to mark seam, and hit A and U to unwrap it. You can see it's here, and I just make them smaller because you will see the material is working better as we added the material in the future. So the next step is unwrapping these Torus in the sides. I just select them, I hit tab to go to the edit mode, I hit A to select all of them, and I hit U, and this time I just use Smart UV project. And yeah, it will make our work easier, but it's not correct because I think the scale have some problem. I just hit Ctrl A to apply the scale of all of them, and after that I go back to the edit mode, I hit U, Smart UV project, and yeah, it's better now. Just scale them down. And yeah, I'm not going to unwrap the stitches, but they will work properly, I think. And if we need, we can unwrap them, but let's just move on and we'll see how it works. I go to the shading workspace and I just customize it first by right clicking here, swap area and join areas. Yeah, and I just hide this gizmo stuffs, and I select my hat and I hit on this new button to add a new material setup. And while we added this setup, we need to add some material, which I'm going to use a PBR texture. that I'm going to download it from a website. I'm using this website to download the textures CG bookcase, which I'll leave its link in the description, and it's ran by this guy Dorian, which is so awesome. His website is very good and useful, so shout out to him. Just definitely check that. I just hit on this browse texture button and I can see this page. I choose my category to fabric and I'm going to use this material Gene 03 for the hat. So just click on that and hit on this download button, and once you downloaded it you will see a zip file. Just unzip it and you will see these photos, and we are going to use them in Blender. So here, while the principal BSCF node is selected, make sure the Node Wrangler add-on is on and hit Ctrl-Shift-T. After that, go to your material file and I'm gonna use the base color. I hold Ctrl, I select the normal and the roughness. I'm not going to use the height and this one, I don't need them. And I just hit on this principal texture setup and you can see the setup is ready and it's very cool, isn't it? So I just going to enter a number like 1.5 for the scale. We can see it's better, and I'm going to enter a number like 0.5 for the normal. It will show the difference in the render viewport, and that's it. The first material is set, and I just choose the brim and I go ahead and I use this material as the brim as well. Now I just rename my material to something like main gene, maybe it's fine, yeah. And I just select this Torus. I go ahead and I choose the main gene material and I hit on this number to make a new material with the same node setup, and I just name it darker gene. After that, to make this material a little darker, I just go ahead, I hit Shift A in the node editor and I search for a hue saturation value. Hue saturation value, I put it right after the base color and I enter a number like 0.7 for the value. And now it's darker. You can play with this to find a better result, but I'm happy with this number. I select this one and I choose the darker gene for that as well. After that, I choose the stitch. I go ahead, I use the darker gene, but this time I just hit on this number again and I name this one brighter gene to make the stitch a little brighter. And yeah, but it's not working because we need to go to the geometry node workspace and add a set material node after all the geometry node setup. After that, just choose the brighter gene as the material input and do the same for the brim's stitch. Just add a set material node and choose the brighter gene as the material. Then I just select the hat stitch, go back to the shading workspace, and while the show overlays option is turned off to see the difference, I just play with this value. I enter a value like 1.3 or maybe 1.15. Yeah, something like this is good. You can make it like darker or whatever you want, and it's on you. You can play with this value to find the best results that you are happy with that. And yeah, just like that, I think we are done, but I'm going to show you how you can change the color of the hat. Just select the hat, go to the material, and after the base color at the mix node, just change it to color, put it right here. And there is several ways to do that. You can like mix it with another color, like a blue color, maybe a jean color, and change this one to multiply or like darken, and just play with this until you get happy. Or maybe you can use this base color as the factor and play with these colors until you got happy, you know. I think it's a better way. Or maybe make it brighter. And yeah, it's all on you. You can change the normal if you don't want that much of roughness. Maybe a number like 0.1 is good. And just separate the material by hitting on this number. After that, I select the brim and I use the base color directly. And yeah, there we go. I think I said everything you need to know, and I think you learned that you can go to the UV editing workspace, go to the material preview, and just scale the UV maps to determine like how much the texture should be big, you know. I think we are done with this tutorial, guys. I hope you learned something useful from this video, and if it's so, subscribe the channel not to miss the next tutorials. Ask your questions and tell your suggestions in the comments, which I definitely read and answer them. And also, if you are willing to learn how to create attachments like this for your hat, let me know in the comments, and if there was like 10 comments interested in learning it, I'll make a tutorial. Thanks for watching, guys. Wish you the best and stay tuned for the next. Goodbye.